Okay, now another one's called what I call the HODL waves or UTXO-H distribution. So let me go ahead and give you this one. Basically what this means is that assessing the realized value of Bitcoin is only possible because of the ledger's transparency and traceability, a property not common to other financial assets. Since all Bitcoin out there is contained in some UTXO, this means that all Bitcoins have an age. Not the age divided by time when the coin was first mined, but when it was last used in a transaction. Okay, so this is actually super important, guys. In times when the market is actually moving higher, Bitcoin's usage actually rises because people are using it to transaction to the altcoin. Same way when you're moving it from exchange to exchange because you're trying to cash out for fiat. And so what they did here was they actually charted the age distribution in the circulating supply gives a trader versus hodler. So traders obviously get very active in times where there's a lot of momentum, while hodlers, generally speaking, don't move those coins much. And so what ends up happening is that the relationship will change depending on the markets. So how do you perceive the value of coin when you first took possession of it? How did you see it today? So people who bought it back a couple of years ago may have perceived Bitcoin as definitely something where you're going to hodl for life. But there's a bunch of people who came in, later on, and said, you know what, I'm just going to buy it just to make some quick money. So now you create a chart that shows the ratio of these hodlers versus these traders. And so the question is, at which cohort represents most of the market at a given time? And this is using the UTXO-H distribution of the coins that's actually analyzed by Unchained Capital. And so let's take a look at that chart real quick. So this actually tells you the chart for the UTXO. So anything that's greater than 5 years, okay, shows you that between this time right here, you definitely have a band, a percentage of the band that has a greater amount of holders, what I call hodlers, right? And in terms of the percentage of Bitcoin existence, as the number of Bitcoin rises to about 100%, you can kind of see what happens to the distribution of these individuals. So as a percentage basis, it seems like you have a lot of people who have been holding Bitcoin for between 2 and 5 years from based off these prices. Now at these levels, that's basically what you're really dealing with. Now on this side right here, you're dealing with people who are actually flipping. So this chart actually shows you kind of like a very interesting thing that maybe in 2014, if you take a look at the percentage, right? Let's take a look at 2017 as an example. In 2017, you had a very large percentage of people who are definitely the hodler people. But as you can see from back in 2010, because of the age distribution as Bitcoin got older and older, there was definitely a lot more people that came in on this side that started to own Bitcoin for a smaller amount of time. And so basically what that tells us is these things called HODL waves. A HODL wave is created when a large amount of Bitcoin transacts on the way up and through a local price becoming recent one day, and then slowly ages into a later band new as the new hodlers. And so here is the actual move that you see right here. So this is actually a very good idea of two numbers. So basically showing you something a little better here. This was taken in 2017 versus October 31st of 2018. And as you can see from here, the number of the percentage of, in terms of the circumstance of what the age distribution looks like, is that you're obviously getting a little bit more people who are holding it past 5 years. So, however, as you are actually entering into this yellow band, which are people who are holding it for a shorter period of time, by October of 2018, you definitely had a lot more people who were holding it for 6 or 12 months. Okay, so this age actually tells you something that the large scale shifts and who's actually staying with it. So based off of this, it does look like that you do have increases in this portion of the band, which is actually good because these are your hodlers. But in terms of your traders, that's also increased. But what's actually decreased a lot has been your shorter periods. So for example, if I take a look at the 3 to 6 months, people, it went down from 20%, went from 9% to about 9.50, but this is the band I'm looking for, the 6 to 12 months, which basically has increased to 23%. So that, and actually there was a drop here from 20% to 7. So what's showing here is that there's been a shift now towards this longer holding period for at least a year. And that's actually good because that tells me that this market is becoming a lot less trader like. Okay. All right. And our last signal is going to be the NVT signal. And this one actually tells us what I call the strength of the market confidence. It means a payment divided by settlement layer. So how much of that you're actually getting in terms of this ratio. So if I take a look at that idea, for example, is I look at the value of the network divided by the volume that's being traded. And what I do is create a chart around it to show the overbought and oversold conditions. So from what you can see right here is that as you're kind of moving through these graphs here, you can kind of see that the NVT signal still spikes up in the sections where we did have that euphoria. Now, what I'm looking for right now is a time when the market's going to bottom out a little bit. And we're actually reaching that point right here in 2016, which is basically this indicator that's showing you how much of that network value is actually put in. And so back in 2014, or looking at 2013, it kind of briefly touched this dash line right here, which we're getting real close to this bottoming out area. And at some point, Bitcoin is definitely going to run back up. So what we're looking for is this danger zones. This actually helps a lot, because what it does is that in this type of situation, you can actually determine a predictive signaling behind these price peaks and tell you what these price peaks actually mean. And so the idea here is that if you divide the network value by the USD amount of daily transactions flowing through the chain, it's very similar to a PE ratio. And what that does is it tells us the use transaction as a volume from the network being derived. And so again, this is actually something to reinforce peaks and troughs. So a measure of the chain strength of the payment network compared to its market value. A low NVT may suggest the network is undervalued compared to its providing as a settlement layer. All right, and the last one is going to be your network momentum. This is called the Bitcoin network momentum. And this actually deals with a specific part of the settlement system relative to the market value. And so if you kind of take a look at this one, is that it actually tracks the relationship between Bitcoin's price and Bitcoin volume flowing through the network. Excuse me. So let's take a look at this example here. So as you go ahead and check the on-chain volume of Bitcoin and you cross-check that with price, specifically with years, you can kind of see where the bull markets kind of start. And every time we have this kind of momentum kind of building, like, from 2016 all the way to 2018, you can kind of see that we do have an increased momentum, but here we're actually flatlining a little bit. So it kind of tells me that at some point we're going to eventually get that movement back up. So overall, it's an alternative to the NVT signal, but it tells you about the BTC flowing through that. Okay. All right, guys. So looking at these charts, I know there's a lot of indicators. There's different ways in which you can use indicators, but I like to use these, and these have been around for a while, so it's not something like new out of the bandwagon. I've been using those for my research for a while now. But the important thing about looking at these, it's not so much about saying, okay, I think Bitcoin's going to go 50K or 20K or 30K. The question really has to do with this idea of valuation. How do you value a cryptocurrency that is based off utility and network effects? And all these metrics utilize this idea of ratios and trying to get a better idea and handle for what these numbers mean. So by looking at all of these, I can clearly safe to say now that we are very, very pretty much at the bottom of this cycle. In fact, we're looking at all these ratios all pointing at the same direction, with this idea that the Bitcoin price basically has a lot of fundamental reasons why it's bottoming out. Now, the more important thing is not just looking at price overall, because price can only tell you, and you can definitely look at things like MACD and RSI lines. But the important thing about these type of indicators is that they actually reflect a fundamental part to this. And that's the important part about these metrics, is that they definitely tell you a story of what's actually happening with the network and what's actually happening to these trends. And that's how you're going to be able to take advantage of this next bull run. That's how I was able to take advantage of many of these coins I was looking at. All right. Well, anyway, hopefully you enjoy this video. And again, I'll post a link about these indicators below. But just to give you an idea of some of the different ways to look at valuation and where exactly we are in this entire part has a lot to do with this idea of measuring other places besides just price. All right. Thanks. CryptoBot out.